So, after someone in my game group gave me a compliment on my last video and told me they particularly liked the editing, I've been beavering away in my internet-based cave learning all I can about my editing software. One thing I've taught myself in the last week is how to do transitions. Now, the danger with learning any new skill is that you really lean into it and your enthusiasm will spill over into hideous overuse. But, as you all know, I'm a man of taste and discretion, so there is no chance that will happen here. So enjoy this week's video and try and see if you can notice the tastefully inserted transitions. How did it take me so long to play this? I have vague memories of playing it years ago, but that doesn't really count as it had zero impact on me. It was only this year at Trajan in Portugal that Bohnanza burrowed its way into my consciousness. What a simple yet incredibly clever game this is. Play some cards, viciously negotiate, and then draw some cards. There we are. I've just explained Bohnanza to you. But this is Uwe Rosenberg, so there has to be some devilish piece of design bravura that makes the game stand out. And this is the way the negotiation is propelled by the fact you can't rearrange your hand. It means that you may have to just give something away so you can get to the juicy cards behind it, and that casual gift to the person next to you, well, it could help them win the game. The negotiation is so cleverly honed in Bohnanza. There is nerve and also hubris. There's the hubris in thinking you can make offers that are just attractive enough, but not too attractive to make you lose the game. Sometimes your hubris pays off, and sometimes, especially if you're me, you end up giving that bastard the one blue bean they need to run away with it. I love games that live above the table, and Bohnanza doesn't just live, it thrives. Fantasy Flight did some amazing games in partnership with Games Workshop. There's another, more significant one coming later in this list. Blood Bowl Team Manager, though, is essentially a complicated Take That game, but it is so well designed and so much fun that it's a plausible sports game, and that makes you feel like you're in the anarchic world of Blood Bowl. This is Fantasy Flight in its glory period, where it just kept on pumping out brilliant thematic joyride after brilliant thematic joyride, before Asmodee gutted it and left it walking around a hollow-eyed facsimile of what it once was. This one especially is sopping wet with juicy theme. It comes out in so many ways in this one, but most importantly in its mechanics. The team you choose are redolent of their own character. The orcs are unrelenting bruisers, while the Black Fangs leverage the injuries sustained by the opponents to drink blood and get stronger. Also, the humour is well served here. Blood Bowl drips with a kind of irreverent British humour that revels in the macabre and the distasteful, and none of this is removed. Jay Little, the designer, and the whole publishing team treat this license with a kind of unconstrained reverence that ensures fans of the original property won't be insulted. That seems inconceivable in today's climate of rugged self-obsession. Blood Bowl Team Manager aims to give players a rollicking good time, and it delivers on that in spades. I'm so happy that I have this one, as it'll never be republished. Of all the games on this list, this is the one that feels most like a folk game. You can picture smoky dockside taverns when you play this one. Dirty, burly men, all pickled livers and sleeve tattoos, slamming down greasy banknotes on this one last hand of Skull. Skull is supremely convincing as a game that has been played in taverns for centuries and yet is only just a decade old. This is a game that has all the hallmarks of being a great gambling game without forcing you to lose hard-earned cash. Skull is incredibly simple, and its depth comes from being able to leverage the incomprehensibility of human motivations. You have to know when to bluff and when not to sow seeds of deceitful weakness or promote antagonisms around the table to encourage people to act irrationally. This is truly a game that should pull free from the moorings of the hobby world and float in the vast ocean of wider popular culture. Every non-gamer I've played this with has understood it instantly and had a whale of a time. This is because Skull is not its components. They just track the action. It is not its rules. They're just there as a platform to support the players as they bob and weave and seek to bamboozle others. Skull is a game of human relationships, and a brilliant one. Stefan Feld can put games together. He can take a brilliant central concept and use that to build a flawless design. His games can look like sprawling tentacles of point harvesting, but in reality, when they're good, they're about one thing and the ramifications of that one thing. This is what Trajan is, a game that feels like it's a load of minigames cobbled together, but is, in reality, about one thing. That flawless Mancala mechanism at the heart of it. The key to Trajan is the manipulation of that Mancala, getting your stones into the right bowls to allow you to spread across the map and dominate the board. If you can do that, you can hoover up all of those lovely points that he's just left lying around. Stefan Feld, along with a couple of other names, is the quintessential Golden Age Euro designer. None of his games feel incomplete, and none of them feel like they need to be fixed with an expansion. This seems almost heretical now in the age of Kickstarter gorging. Trajan is a truly curated experience. Your initial goal cards give you a path into the game, and after your first tentative steps, you can start to run with the design. You can start to feel that your turns have import. This is not a hit and hope game or a game drenched in artery-clogging rules. This is a sleek and satisfying experience and a great choice for those wanting to enter the choppy waters of heavier games. I'm not sure that my hernia muscles could handle a real tug of war, but who needs that sweaty twats in a field shit when you have the apotheosis of the form in the box of Dogs of War? The bigger and slightly more complex brother of Blitzkrieg, this game is just unlimited fun. It's super easy to pick up, and as soon as you've worked out what you're doing, you can get on with the real business of Dogs of War, and that is fucking with the other players. Alliances are formed and then broken in the next breath. Victory can be snatched from the jaws of defeat and vice versa. The special powers of the various factions are unobtrusive enough not to be a pain in the arse, but impactful enough to justify being there. Also, this game is a riot. There is loads of trash talk and supplication here. Also, it encourages the kind of bullshitting that makes games hilarious. There is great joy in promising things to your opponents and then simply breaking those promises. Dogs of War is an incredulity breeding machine, and if you like the face of your opponent, simply shocked that you could have been so underhanded, well, then you have to play this one. Some games just defy logic because they're so well put together, and Orléans is one of these. Orléans was not the first bag building game, but it perfected the form. From the moment the game kicks off to the moment you're tallying the scores, you're engrossed. Also, and I say this a lot about the games I love, but the arc in this is perfect. Those spaces on the scoreboards look like pure fantasy when you start the game, but by the time you're in your stride, you're flinging tokens up there with reckless abandon. Also, this is the best culling mechanism in the business, because you're not simply throwing away the shit you don't need, but it's helping you to ascend to first place. On top of that, this is a Eurogame that has an absorbing co-op mode. It wouldn't be my first choice to play, because I like the people who flagellate me to be human rather than the game. But if co-op is your thing, then this one is brilliant. When Eurogames are great, they feel like their own little machine that needs just the neatest of coaxing, and then they fly on their own. Orléans feels like this. You start the game and before you know it, you're flying towards an incredibly satisfying conclusion. This is one of the best Eurogames out there, but don't, and I can't stress this enough, do not confuse this one with Orléans Stories. The hype around this game, even before it was out, was enormous. Because Codenames is so ubiquitous in the gaming landscape now, we forget how much of a splash it caused and how innovative it was when it came out. This was one of the first games I rushed to get at Essen that year, and then promptly pissed a full pint of beer onto my freshly acquired copy 5 minutes into my first play. Thankfully, the inscription I got from one of my gaming heroes, Vlada Chvátil, came out of it unharmed. By the way, if any of you watching this speak Czech and want to translate this for me, I would be very grateful. This is a game that can be a quiet, thoughtful affair, with the players silently picking apart the expertly delivered clues, or, if you're a big mouth like me, it can be raucous and rambunctious, with the opposition trying to put you off with distractions while you try and unravel the idiotic mumblings from the bastard at the end of the table. Codenames is so simple that I wish I'd come up with it, but so clever that I know I couldn't have. Codenames is just such a communal game that always brings people together. It's a classic for a reason. I played this one just the other night, and because of my awful rules explanation, it started to fall flat, and I started to worry that I might have been wrong about Keyflower. Then we got into the swing of things, and I'm beginning to wonder if 33 might be a bit too low. Now, do not let the image of these thoroughly nice English gentlemen fool you. They have designed a game that, if it's played right, kicks you in the unmentionables and then laughs about it. If you like to beat your friends around ludologically and get beaten around in turn, well then Keyflower is for you. Yes, there are sheep on the box, but there are shivs within. Keyflower is essentially a bidding game with some route building tacked on. It is the bidding that is the true heart of this game, though. It's all about dissembling and gazumping and pretending that you have nothing and swooping in at the right time and pissing everybody off at the table. This happened to me the other night, and I couldn't have been happier, because I love a game with teeth, and in Keyflower, the sheep are rabid. I really love this game, and I need to play it more. There is a virtue in simplicity. There is a skill in simplicity, and when simplicity reaches its zenith, there is a puzzling transcendence in simplicity. How can something that is so straightforward, whose component parts are there for all to see, be so dazzling? How can these component parts, through some ineffable magic, be transformed into brilliance? This is no thanks. Take a card or leave a token, that's it. That's the game, and yet, every time I play it with someone new, they seem quizzical at first, and invigorated by its radiance by the end. There is so much delicious tension in a game of no thanks, but every time someone takes a card, that tension is dissipated by the joy of Schadenfreude. Thank God I didn't have to take it, you think, only for the horse's hair to snap and that sword to come slicing down through your head. No thanks is a round rejection of the creeping complexity of modern gaming. It understands that you don't need a labyrinth of a rule set to have depth and engagement. You need a solid concept with a bit of peril thrown in. I would take no thanks over any number of bloated Kickstarter Euros. You know who you are. Is no thanks simple? Absolutely. Is no thanks brilliant? Undoubtedly. Is no thanks one of the best times you can have with just a single deck of cards? Well, you're going to have to play it to find out. This is Eric Lang's finest game and a trailblazing example of asymmetry being the driving force behind a design. Every faction is different in playstyle, scoring condition and ethos. When you first play the game, you think that Khorne is just so OP and it's just so easy to win, but as the other players start to riddle through their own powers and their abilities, things start to equal out and the board becomes a way to demonstrate your tactical acuity. Then you realise what a thoroughly brilliant game design this one is. This is another classic from the days when Games Workshop and Fantasy Flight worked in seeming harmony. There is a real respect for the source material here, but it is very much its own thing. It's very much a board game, and one of the best dudes on a map game that's ever been made. Also, I love how relentlessly thematic it is, with the mechanisms folded beautifully into the wanton, ironic cruelty of the old world. I love that this is a game that can be won by any player at any time too. And when you add in the expansion faction, there is an unpredictability that is in keeping with the blighted land you're fighting over. This is another one that won't be reprinted that I'm so glad I own. Well, there we are, another 10 down. Thanks for watching, and if you ever feel like giving me a sub, well, I suppose I'd take it. Also, you can support the channel by buying merch, or even going to the Patreon and being like one of these lovely people. The links are below. Well, as it's summer, I'm going to do my British duty by going outside and getting as sunburnt as possible.